You do not distrust the world. You distrust yourself. Every time you say you will wake up early, every time you say you will train, every time you say you will stop tolerating what weakens you, and you don't. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, it is small, quiet, almost invisible, but your mind records it. The first betrayal does not hurt, the 10th one reshapes you. You begin to hesitate before making promises, not because you are cautious, because you already know. You already know there is a gap between what you say and what you execute. And that gap is where self-respect erodes. You think motivation will fix it. It won't. Motivation is emotional weather. Reliability is architecture. Architecture does not depend on mood, it depends on structure. When you break your word to others, you feel guilt. When you break your word to yourself, you feel something worse. You feel smaller, not instantly, gradually, a subtle contraction. You stop setting real goals. You lower the standard. You aim where failure will not expose you, because you are tired of proving yourself wrong. Understand this clearly. Every time you fail to act on a decision you made in clarity, you teach your nervous system that your own voice is negotiable, that your decisions are suggestions, that your discipline is optional, and the body adapts. You are conditioning unreliability, not through catastrophe, through repetition. There is no external enemy here, no conspiracy, no obstacle too large, only a pattern. You speak, you delay, you rationalize, you soften the edges. I'll start tomorrow. I'm tired. It's not the right time. Each explanation feels reasonable, and reason becomes your escape. The dangerous part is not laziness, it is self-deception. You convince yourself that intention equals progress. It does not. Your mind does not measure intention, it measures execution. And when execution does not follow intention, something fractures. Trust. Trust is not built by confidence, it is built by kept promises. Small ones, unseen ones, promises no one else hears. Wake up when you said you would. Train when you said you would. Leave what you said you would leave, not because it is heroic, because it is consistent. The world does not need you to be extraordinary, but you need you to be reliable. Without that, nothing stabilizes, not ambition, not discipline, not identity. You cannot build a strong life on a weak internal contract. If your word to yourself means nothing, you are unstable at the foundation. And foundations do not collapse loudly, they crack quietly. Becoming reliable to yourself begins with one decision. Stop negotiating with your own clarity. When you decide in a calm state, honor it in a tired one. When you commit in strength, execute in weakness. No drama, no announcement, just follow through. Because every kept promise reinforces something deeper than productivity. It reinforces identity. And identity is what you act from when motivation disappears. Right now, you do not need more inspiration. You need fewer broken agreements. Start there. Keep one promise today. No audience, no applause. Just you, and the silent contract that begins to harden. You do not break your word because you are incapable. You break it because you are divided. There is the version of you that decides, and the version of you that executes. They are not the same person. The one who decides lives in clarity, stable emotion, controlled environment, future-oriented thinking. The one who executes lives in friction, fatigue, discomfort, impulse. And when friction arrives, the decision maker is gone. This is the fracture most people never confront. They believe discipline is about intensity. It is not. It is about alignment between states. When you make a commitment, you are making it from your highest cognitive position. You see the consequences clearly. You see the pattern. You see the cost of inaction. But later, when the alarm rings, when the training session approaches, when the hard conversation must happen, you are operating from a lower state, lower energy, lower patience, lower tolerance for discomfort. And in that state, comfort feels rational. You do not think, "I am betraying myself." You think, "This isn't that serious. I deserve rest. I'll make it up tomorrow. One time won't matter." And your brain agrees, because the brain is wired to reduce immediate discomfort, not protect long-term identity. Understand this without emotion. Your nervous system values safety over consistency. It values relief over integrity. So when discomfort rises, your system looks for escape, and breaking your own promise becomes the fastest relief available. The problem is not weakness. The problem is that you trust your feelings more than your decisions. You treat mood as authority. Mood is unstable. Mood changes with sleep, with stress, with environment, with hunger. But the commitment you made was supposed to override mood. Instead, you allow mood to veto it. This is how internal credibility collapses, not in grand failures, in micro-surrenders. You wake up and negotiate. You feel resistance and rationalize. You encounter friction and soften. Each time, the execution self overrules the decision self. And slowly, you stop respecting the one who decides. Why plan carefully if you won't follow through? Why aim high if you won't endure the cost? So your goals shrink. Your standards adjust downward. Your identity narrows. You tell yourself you are being realistic, but realism is often disguised avoidance. There is something else happening underneath. Fear. Not fear of failure, fear of sustained responsibility. Because once you prove to yourself that you can follow through consistently, you remove your last excuse. If you are unreliable, you can always say, "I just need to get serious." If you become reliable, seriousness is no longer optional. Reliability eliminates the comfort of potential, and potential is addictive. As long as you are inconsistent, you can imagine a future where you suddenly transform. But if you commit daily and still fall short, the fantasy disappears. Now the results are real. Now the effort is visible. Now there is nowhere to hide. So you subconsciously protect the fantasy by remaining inconsistent. Breaking your word is not just about laziness. It is about preserving identity, the identity of someone who could, but hasn't fully tried. Because fully trying removes illusion. Becoming reliable to yourself requires something uncomfortable. You must allow your lower states to obey your higher decisions. Not debate them, not reinterpret them, obey them. When the alarm rings, it is not a discussion. When the session begins, it is not optional. When the standard is set, it is not emotional. It is structural. You do not need to feel ready. You need to execute anyway. That is how the two versions of you begin to merge: the decision maker and the executor, clarity and friction, vision and fatigue, until they are the same person. And when that happens, you stop doubting yourself, not because you feel confident, because you have evidence, and evidence is stronger than emotion. If you're done living in distraction, like and subscribe. This channel exists to help you protect your attention and build something real. There is a cost to unreliability. Not a loud one, not immediate, but cumulative. You think the cost is lost progress, missed workouts, delayed projects, unfinished plans. That is surface level. The real cost is internal erosion. When you repeatedly break your word, something subtle shifts. You stop expecting yourself to follow through. You stop trusting your own future behavior. And when trust disappears, hesitation replaces it. You hesitate before committing. You hesitate before setting standards. You hesitate before speaking confidently, because part of you whispers, you won't maintain it. That whisper becomes your ceiling. You do not push hard because you doubt sustainability. You do not aim high because you doubt consistency. You do not lead because you doubt discipline. And doubt, repeated often enough, becomes identity. You start describing yourself differently. I'm not consistent. I struggle with discipline. I just need the right push. These statements feel honest, but they are conclusions drawn from repetition, and repetition becomes belief. The body adapts to what you practice. If you practice quitting, you become efficient at quitting. If you practice delay, you become fluent in delay. Your nervous system wires itself around what you repeat. Unreliability is trained, just like strength, just like endurance, just like focus. The dangerous part is that unreliability spreads. It does not stay confined to one habit. You skip one commitment, then another. You soften one boundary, then another. You tolerate one compromise, then another. Soon, you are not just unreliable with workouts or routines. You are unreliable with standards, with values, with decisions that matter. And when a serious moment arrives, a crisis, a confrontation, an opportunity, you do not trust yourself to respond correctly. So you shrink. You hesitate at the edge of responsibility because you have evidence of collapse behind you. You have trained yourself to retreat when friction rises, and the mind remembers. This is how self-respect deteriorates, not through moral failure, through inconsistency. Self-respect is not about pride, it is about alignment. Do I act in accordance with what I claim to value? If the answer is repeatedly no, your internal posture changes. You become less direct, less decisive, less steady. You start seeking external validation to compensate. If you cannot trust your own word, you look for someone else to confirm your worth. Approval becomes currency. Praise becomes temporary stability. But it does not repair the fracture. Because the fracture is internal. It is the gap between decision and execution. And here is the deeper cost. When you no longer trust yourself, you begin to fear commitment. Commitment requires belief in follow-through. Without that belief, every long-term plan feels fragile. Relationships feel fragile, ambitions feel fragile, promises feel fragile. So you avoid depth, you avoid full investment. You protect yourself from the shame of collapse by never fully committing. That protection feels safe, but it is suffocating. You become smaller than your capacity, not because you lack talent, because you lack internal certainty. Reliability is not about productivity. It is about structural integrity. When the internal structure is strong, you move without second-guessing. When it is weak, every step feels unstable. You overthink, you delay, you seek reassurance. All symptoms of the same root. You do not fully believe you will show up. And if you cannot believe in your own showing up, how can you expect others to? This is where many people break, not because they failed publicly, but because they failed privately too many times. And private failure, repeated without correction, creates quiet despair. You do not need motivation. You need restoration of internal credibility. Because once credibility collapses, everything built on top of it becomes unstable. And unstable foundations do not hold under pressure, not for long. You do not rebuild trust with intensity. You rebuild it with repetition. Grand gestures are useless here. You cannot repair internal collapse with one dramatic effort, one perfect week, one surge of discipline, one emotional breakthrough. That is performance. Reliability is construction. And construction is quiet. It starts with one rule. When you decide in clarity, you obey in friction. No reinterpretation, no renegotiation, no emotional vote. You choose fewer commitments, but you keep them. If you say you will wake at 6, you wake at 6. If you say you will train, you train. If you say you will leave what weakens you, you leave. Not because you feel powerful, because you said you would. Your word becomes law, not law enforced by emotion, law enforced by identity. At first, it will feel mechanical, cold, rigid, good. Structure should not depend on how you feel about it. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are trying to restore internal alignment. And alignment is built through consistency under discomfort. There will be resistance. Your body will search for escape. Your mind will offer explanations. Today doesn't matter. You've done enough. You deserve relief. You do not argue. You execute. Execution without drama is power. When you follow through despite fatigue, something shifts. When you follow through despite doubt, something stabilizes. When you follow through despite boredom, something hardens. The decision maker and the executor begin to merge. There is no longer a debate. There is only action. And slowly, evidence accumulates. You wake when you said you would. You complete what you committed to. You endure what you chose. Not once, repeatedly. Evidence replaces doubt. Doubt weakens. Posture changes. You speak differently. You commit differently. You move without hesitation because you know, not hope, that you will follow through. This is self-trust, not confidence, not hype. Self-trust is quiet certainty in your own execution. From that certainty, everything expands. Ambition becomes stable, discipline becomes natural, boundaries become firm. You no longer need external pressure. You become self-regulating. And here is the final truth. The world respects reliability, but you require it. Without it, you remain divided. With it, you become integrated. Becoming reliable to yourself is not glamorous. It is repetitive. It is uncelebrated. It is built in mornings no one sees and decisions no one hears. Keep the small promises, especially when they are inconvenient, especially when they are boring, especially when no one would know if you didn't, because you would know, and that is enough. If this resonated, like the video. If you value discipline over emotion, subscribe. No noise, no performance, just alignment, and the steady rebuilding of your own word.